Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Eliojo, your host. My apologies. I'm joining with the friend's Zoom account. I have a little issue with mine. How's everyone doing this evening or afternoon or morning? Super. Thank you. Um, thank you.
Morning.
Hi. Is my video on? No, I don't think so. There you go. Good evening, ladies, and good morning. I'm sorry. Good morning, ladies. Evening over here. Um, and welcome to everyone else on the uh call this evening. We'll just I just want to give 3 more minutes to see if anyone else joins, and then at 4:05 we will kick off. Thank you. All right, ladies, thank you very much. And everyone, thank you for your patience. We will kick off now. The meeting is being recorded. So I'm sure that anyone who wants to join will join us, and anyone who wishes they join will get the recording. So this evening we are having a lovely chat on Queen's Edge, proven sales strategies that elevate your career. And we have with us three wonderful, powerful women in sales leadership that we are very, very honored to have with us this evening. So I'll start with the introductions and then we'll go straight into the sessions. So I'm going to start the introductions with Alana. Hi, Alana. It's very lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you all too. I think I'm realizing now it's the evening there. It's the morning here in Chicago, so excited to be here. But yes, my name is Alana Bentley. I'm from Chicago and I am in sales, of course, Queen of Sales. Thank you so much for having me here. Basically, I have been a sales leader for over 9+ years now, and it's been in several different modalities from retail sales and pharmacy to growing into tech sales and becoming an inside sales manager, Hologram Inc., and then moving and pivoting into pharmaceutical sales with GSK and now Gilead Sciences. So very excited to be here and share what I've learned so far in this journey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, that was Alana Bentley. As she said, seasoned sales leadership with over 9 years of experience. And today she will be blessing us with her insights into how women leaders turn coaching into revenue, moving from mentor to multiplier. And she'll be showing us how to move from guidance to active sponsorship, opening doors, strengthening relationships, and driving real revenue. So a warm welcome to you, Alana. Looking forward to a wonderful session with you. Yeah. Up next, I will introduce to us Jo Wong. Jo Wong is, hi, Jo.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Are you in Chicago as well?
No, I am a little bit deceptive. So I am in London. Funny enough, Alana, I grew up outside of Chicago in Aurora, Naperville. I also lived in Tampa, Miami, but I relocated to London now 6 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
interesting.
Bears.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So it's good to meet you, Jill.
Thank you.
I see you are the CEO and founder of Let's Grow BFF, Black Female Founders. And
Yes.
yes, Jill has a powerful platform that supports and elevates Black women in entrepreneurship. And with her impact, she has several recognitions, including the Sisters in Sales Trailblazer Award, and she has a spot as a Black Talents Award finalist. And we'll be having a session today where Joe will break down how meaningful conversations can lead to conversion, stronger relationships, and consistent success. Thank you for joining us, Joe. I'm really looking forward to this.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but not least, I'm going to introduce our final speaker of the evening, Teju Adeteju Ajani. Hi, Teju.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you
Well,
for
today.
thank you for joining us. So, Teju has over 15 years of global experience, and she has driven high impact partnerships for top brands like Apple, Google, YouTube, Oracle across 3 continents. She's well known for her expertise in authentic relationships selling, and she helps teams to not just hit targets, but to truly thrive. And we're looking forward to a session with her this evening where she teaches us how to blend authenticity, emotional intelligence, and digital tools to build trust, deepen client relationships, and stay ahead in an automated world. Lovely to meet you, Teju.
Likewise, thank you very much for
Thank you.
your kind introduction.
Thank you. Looking forward to the session. So I'm going to start off right away with Alana. Excuse me. So I want to start by asking, what would you say is the difference between a mentor and a multiplier? The difference between being a mentor and a multiplier in a professional setting?
Yeah, absolutely. So biggest difference between mentor and a multiplier right now is mentors inspire and multipliers transform. And that's one of the things that I have been trying to kind of build a framework around for really anyone in sales, but women in sales are dear to my heart because that's how I started. I didn't come from a traditional background when it came to corporate America. Thought I was going to be a scientist. I was in the lab doing PCR and all these things. And then I was kind of recruited to the front to sales through CVS Pharmacy through a mentor of mine. So the lift as you climb it is really a part of that framework. And to be a multiplier means you're not just giving advice, you're actually trying to see through and pull through people to their potential and their goals. And so that's where mentor to multiplier was kind of formed in that vein.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, Very insightful. So coaching is well, is a lot more, would I say? Okay, so sorry, before I go on with the questions, I think I will let you move forward with your presentation first, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And then
that's good.
okay, and then we'll pick up with the questions.
Sure.
Uh,
Did you want me to share my screen?
yeah, if that's okay with you, yes.
Yes. Okay. Share button. Yeah. That.
Super.
Let's see. What are you guys seeing? I feel like you're seeing the wrong side of everything. Is that better?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, mentor and multiplier. As I said, we're mentors inspire and multipliers transform. You guys kind of got a little bit of the about me. So technically what I'm building next is mentor and multiplier. I'm channeling all of the sales that I've gotten and all the history that I've, built up to help build sales acumen and also kind of fill the wealth gap for women in sales. I think that along this journey for the last 9 years, I've been really, really privileged to find really amazing mentors who have told me where the bar is and helped me break the glass ceiling instead of being compliant or being complicit with being unsupported and underserved or underproductive. So I'm wanting to kind of inspire others, but also really build a framework for others to succeed. And so that's where Mentor Multiplier came from. But a lot of times people are like, well, who are you? Who is Alana? And so I just wanted to also take a moment to say, Queen, I'm one of you, right? As far as like where I came from, very humble beginnings. My mother is an immigrant from the Philippines. I am the eldest daughter of hers. I have two children, two twin boys. So that is no small feat. And I've always been someone born as a natural competitor. I had to put something up there like that because this is my early life. This is something that is really part of my core value system and how I built value systems. And I think it's really important for you to share this with your mentors as mentees so that they can kind of get a grasp of who you are and really assess, what's important to you. So I always start with this, who is Alana? And how I built, my career early on was really for all of these people, my family and myself, and doing work, for us, as Black women, we realize who we're doing it for. And I think that's what gives us a lot of that motivation to continue. But humble beginnings was not the end. So moving forward now, I went from undervalued to unstoppable is what I like to tell people because it is so true. it's one of those things where you don't know where you're going to end up. I think I got recruited as a waitress back in my college days to a CVS store manager. Wow. And that was the biggest start of my life. And it really helped me break through into what I knew I could be capable of. So I would love these pictures because they kind of show my serial networking part side of me. And so from mentee to mentor is really what we're talking about today, and how to build careers based off of, creating access, really engineering access, because the access to these places from my national sales conference with NSN, to, getting into organizations like Jack and Jill, and even, finding opportunities to grow and upskill myself, like the Harvard University Division of Continuing Studies. These are all things that I was asked to step up to through others, mentors of mine. And so I really rebuilt my network, because it wasn't always easy. When you go back to those other pictures, I was the first in my family to go to college. I was the first in my family to have children from my siblings. So everything, if you know about being the eldest daughter, it's all about trying to find your footing. And sometimes you're pushed out on a ledge and you have to land on your feet. So that's why from undervalued to unstoppable means a lot to me. And what I've learned along the way is interesting. So the challenge for a lot of us right now is professionals feel really stuck. A lot of times we are sitting in these under leveraged and underpaid positions, and we really just feel unsupported. So it is kind of a maze to navigate where are you headed, especially from out of college for young professionals to even some of us who are senior level, but are still hanging on to getting a promotion, or some of those who are already in management and are looking for an exit strategy and quietly quitting. And so that's the challenge that we really want to break down from mentor to multiplier, is to understand why you feel stuck, or what is your goal and how can we reach it together, or build a framework for you to at least slowly add steps to that table so that you can make it to that table. I wanted to share a little bit more about challenges that we're seeing today, just some statistics. Individual contributors, which I'm an individual contributor right now. I actually took that step from being a frontline leader, because I thought that it worked with where I'm headed and where I'm going. And sometimes that's a hard step for a lot of people to take, but only 30% of US employees say they feel engaged at work. And 70% are checked out or disengaged and quietly quitting. These are just some of the things I pulled, obviously, off of, the internet, but, you could look around and ask anyone on your team today, the real, the candid, and people are going to have some frustration. They're going to have some stress, especially around what we're dealing with today. And then, individual contributors are also one third less likely to be promoted, which I think is really interesting, because that's a lot of times why we come to the job, right? We see growth, we see, that we're going to make an impact, and we want to have that reward at the end. But it's not given. It's certainly not a pathway that is entitled. You have to really work for it and build it yourself. And sometimes you have to manage up in a sense to where you're actually writing that pathway for you and your managers so that you can achieve it. And I think that was one of the things that my mentors did for me at GSK and here at Gilead, and throughout my life, whatever industry I'm in. And so we're just trying to make sure that everyone has that framework, so you're not simply just waiting in the water and waiting for something to happen to you. We want to be more strategic than that. We want to add more clarity to where we're going. So that's the vision. Professionals, we win the game of wealth because we are, getting these six-figure jobs, happily accepting them, but what are we doing with them? How are we compounding them? And I think time and our roles are compounding assets. I think that things that we should be utilizing as an investment, not only in, where we want ourselves to be, our careers to be, but where we want our families to be. How can we use these roles to also, clear that wealth gap in our families and build generational wealth? It's not always about just the titles. It's not always about the recognition. It's also about what am I building for myself and my family. And that's, again, where my core beliefs come from. And I think that with that in top of mind, our mentors can also help us change our lives, and transform our lives, not just gives advice on how to navigate it. So that's exactly where, mentors sometimes fail and the multipliers will rise. So mentorship, it can't fix burnout alone, but I do see that more and more burnout is happening. And that's why I think structure is going to really help in this kind of volatile climate in professionals, because that's our framework. That's something we can work in and not feel like we're falling through the cracks. We can push through, hard times with a framework, because we know that it has worked time over time and it will get us where we're going. And there's always availability to adjust and be adaptable as well. I think flexibility is super, super important in our industry. So with that, I just wanted to kind of share lastly, just kind of what I've been using as a system, a framework. I know some of you are here for some advice, but the Accelerate system is super, super simple. I mean, we're going to assess, calibrate, credibility, engage, leverage, expand, lock, and evolve. You're like, what do those mean, Alana? Really, honestly, it's all about, one of the things that I do in my 5 to 9s, not my 9 to 5, is I also am the president of the National Sales Network here in Chicago. We have over 17 chapters nationwide. Actually, globally, we have one in London, Joe. So you're able to build a network within NSN that can really help in different industries. We kind of cater to pharmaceuticals, medical device, and technology sales. And so I knew that's where my skill set was. And so I just kind of built this framework for myself. And rewinding 5 years ago, I was a divorcee with 2, 3 little twin years, and I had 7-year gap between retail. And so I used this Accelerate system to really jump ahead as fast and as quickly as possible. So one thing I did first was assess, like, where are my gaps? What do I need to get one of these big 6-figure jobs with you all in NSN, right? And I think that was super important, because I was very honest with myself of where my gaps were. And I think that's a big part of mentorship, is that you have to be really honest in your mentorship. And you have to be very, very clear on what you need in order to reach those goals. And so assessment is super, super important. And that's something that I did. And if you fast forward from 5 years ago, I was able to increase my salary 324%. I was able to get promoted 3 times. I was able to pivot industries into, the industry that I've always wanted to be in pharmaceutical sales, which is something unprecedented without experience. So it really is a system. It's not something that you just turn the lights on and it's not a subscription model by any means. It is something you put in. So just to go through a little bit of that, assess is really clarify your target role and identify your value story. Again, how I started with who's Alana, it's really, really important to your value story. It's really important to understand, what's going to drive and motivate you. That's always a key question on interview questions, right? Like, what motivates you? Don't give the cheesy answer, right? Really dig into what that is. You can take assessments online. You can do things like the Myers-Briggs, anything that really kind of builds up who you are. And sometimes you're going to find out a little bit more about yourself than you knew. And then calibrate. We're really going to join all of that information into a role market fit or a salary fit. And then fill those skill gaps if needed. So that's why I did some sales and sales training. I've done Sandler training. I've done, again, that continuing studies for sales managers with Harvard. I think building those skill gaps are really, really important for managers to see too. And that's that calibration. You don't want to assess that you've got gaps and then do nothing with it to make sure that you're to make sure you're not getting stuck. So definitely calibrate. Thirdly, credibility is actually really, really important. I kind of put building out your resume, your LinkedIn, and interview assets. That's really important. It does give credibility when you're in a really fast setting like a conference or a career fair. But I also think your LinkedIn builds a lot of credibility, and that's how Queen of Sales got in touch with me, right? I had won demand basis, women in top 100 women in sales 3 years in a row. And, I have won national awards as far as like Circle of Excellence or GSK. But I think that that credibility is signaled in on my LinkedIn, and it's important that people see that I am successful at what I'm saying right now, right? And so that is something that you build with your mentor as well. That credibility, that sponsorship, like they're able to share some of these assets with other people. I think that's super important. So yeah, definitely continue to build your credibility, ladies, because it's going to continue to go with you a long way. And you know, there's going to be always someone trying to trip you up in that credibility lane, someone trying to, you know, take credibility away from you. But if you have a mountain of credibility, they're going to be chipping at that a long time, right? So for us, you know, and the industries that we're in and in the small rooms that we're in, it's important that our credibility speaks for us before we even enter that room. Engage, number 4, is networking. I think networking for me is one of the things that has saved me from really getting stuck, but also getting lost. You know, sometimes you can go down the rabbit hole. You know, you've ever heard of doom scrolling? My kids call it doom scrolling. They're going and you can do that in networking too. I had no idea. I found myself at a dinner table once with a bunch of people that had nothing in common with great conversation, but you know, time is of the essence. So networking is really, really important. It can be very strategic and intentional. And I think mentors are really great with this because either they have a built-in framework for networking, or they have new tiers of networking that you didn't think were possible or didn't know about, or opened you up to different people that actually can be a mentor from your mentor. So even if you have one mentor, ladies, you don't have to have just one. You can have a board of directors, if you will. And we get into that more for sure. But that board of directors is really where you're engaging, where you're building that sponsorship for yourself, whether it's in work, outside of work, special, you know, products, all those things. So you want to make sure we're getting that acceleration here and engage. And then leverage. So, you know, one of the hardest questions I had from a mentor was, what's in it for me? I really got that. And I had never heard that before. I had been, you know, pulling mentors left and right. And this was a mentor from my work. And I saw that he was an amazing strategist. I saw that he was a wonderful orator. And I just really wanted to kind of absorb some of that information. And the thing was, I didn't have anything really to offer at the time. I was new, but I knew I wanted to build a relationship with him. And so the offer strategy is really important when you're asking for a mentor. Make sure that you're also giving yourself something to give. In hindsight, I would have been like, listen, I'm going to build relationships across the territory for you. I'm going to build myself to be, you know, promotable for you. And so hopefully one day, you know, I can help train other people on our team to do the exact same thing. But, you know, that's in hindsight. Now I'm in another company, but we still keep in touch. But leveraging your offer strategy, leveraging scripts for your base, your bonus, your equity and benefits, those are all things your mentors can also help you with as you're climbing, but also help you in other arenas, not just work, but potentially off work, potentially entrepreneurship, potentially also just building a strategy for wealth, you know, for yourself. When I first got hired, one of the managers who was actually quite burned out in my company and left as soon as I got there, she told me that she was able to pay for her 2 daughters' colleges with the money she got from GSK. That was mind blowing to me because I know we all know how much college is right now, and I have 2 kids too. And so she did that, being very, very strategic on her offers and understanding, you know, what equity looks like, you know, for a Black woman manager in sales. So loved her. She gave me a great opportunity, great mentor. We're at 16 minutes, so just expand, you know, make sure you have day 1 to day 90 for early wins that you can leverage and build on that leverage. And then lock in is really important. I think one of the things that we kind of get lost in from a work standpoint is that we just keep working. We keep working, we keep working, we keep growing, but what about all that converting of, you know, our role into wealth systems? That's another thing that I really am trying to build out with my framework is having wealth systems like budgeting, debt, invest on autopilot. Because I think one of the things that not a lot of people get a lot of information on is what do I do with my 401k? How do I make sure I'm balanced out. How am I even balancing out my 401k? There was a tragic instance where I had a friend, super smart friend, nuclear chemist, and worked 10 years in a nuclear reactor, and his 401k was only worth 10K. This is a tragedy of someone not having the mentorship to know how to develop his wealth, develop, a budget, develop something that is actually going to grow with him in every role that you have. Again, like I said, roles are compounding assets. It's something that you're compounding not only in your career and asset, but also you're compounding that wealth. So I think that's a super important part of my journey for people to mentor in. And someone has helped me do that. I work with a financial advisor that's helped me grow exponentially and kind of regroup, myself. So definitely important. And that's why it's a part of my accelerate system. And then evolve. We're going to track those outcomes. We're going to iterate. We're going to, track our wins and challenges, performance and relationship currency. Hopefully you guys have all heard of that. That's super duper important. Something that you're always going to want to talk to your mentor about and where you can grow that. And then, wealth checkpoints. So, yeah, that is it. Ways to work with me. That's where you can book a strategy call with me, calendly.com, Earning Wealth Collective. And hopefully your next week isn't a gamble, but it's a strategy. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you so much, Alana. Thank you. That was actually quite succinct and insightful. Thank you very much. And I think some of those are even applicable outside of just work, but even with, general personal life and
exactly
other,
melt, right? We want to melt two things together. If you're gonna have work-life balance, you can't work on work and not your life, right? At the same time. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna just go ahead and ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've already talked, or you have talked to us about the difference between being a mentor and a multiplier. And with this strategy, it shows us a clear way of being able to grow from even being a mentee to being a mentor and a multiplier. So the next question, which I will ask, or the question I'll ask you now is, how can women, female leaders turn their coaching into measurable business results or revenue?
Yeah. As a coach now today, how I build into my team or into those who come to me for mentorship, it's all about, like I said, being able to track where they are and assess, where they need to be or where they want to be. And so once you do that and kind of build that baseline, everything on top of that is what you're working towards, right? And so coaching for me is about helping people reach the potential in their goals. It's not something for me, and maybe that's just who I am. I want to see everybody win. I used to be a track runner. I used to be on the basketball team. I want us all to win. I'm going to play my role to make sure that happens. And I think that's where it's really important for coaching, is that you are playing a role, a servant role, right? You're serving others. And I think it's really important that you take your ego out of it and really try to invest in others, pathways. And so if there is something that I can do, I like to call myself an aggregator. So you have to know your strength, right? I am an aggregator. I'm not I'm not the person who's going to train you necessarily, right? Maybe there are people who are great trainers who are going to teach you all the AI frameworks and all that. I know somebody who could do that. So I aggregate. I want to connect people to those people so that they can develop those skills. Now, it's still going to go in our worksheet. It's still going to be a checkoff box. Like, have you been able to connect with this person? What were some of the deliverables that you got? How has that helped you in getting to where we're going? What are you going to use in the next 90 days to make sure that happens? So that would be the other part of me, which is that manager side and coaching side, to continue that follow up. But that's who I am. I'm an aggregator, and that's how I'm going to help people, lift as I climb.
All right. Thank you. I might come back to this if we have some time later. Just maybe with a few follow-up. But I will ask you next. Um, so you had talked in your presentation about the leverage. And so this
Mhm.
question sort of maybe brings that back in a way. So how can sponsors or mentors open doors and create opportunity for that for others? And I ask this knowing that or at least now being aware that a mentor would require some like a leverage, like an offer strategy. So how
Mhm.
would you as a sponsor help to open doors and create opportunities for others?
Absolutely. I think it's a lot easier to open doors for others who have really been intentional about what doors they need open. And one of the ways you do that with your either with your mentor or with your manager is building that development plan, right? Your development plan is kind of your true north. It's going to be your mapping system to adding things that you want to, leverage in due time. So if I just joined a company and I know a lot of people at this company, that is something I can leverage. I can leverage relationship building. I can leverage partnership matrix. I can leverage, being able to collaborate. And so that's something I'm going to put in my development plan. And it's going to continue to kind of evolve. Each quarter that you do it, you're going to say, okay, what can I do to make this bigger? And to where if people are that engaged with you and you're showing that engagement, then as a sponsor, I'd say, oh, how about you lead this, special project? Because everybody knows you who's in this special project and, they believe in the work that you're doing and they're going to be able to be led well, through someone that they've already have a proof of concept from, right? So that's where sponsors, can offer you that off cuff because you've already given that proof of concept in your development plan. And so they just get you the next rite of passage. So that's something I've done, when you have white space. I love white space and territory because that is a place where you can leverage yourself to say, hey, I'm going to go outside of the box. I'm going to expand my skill set in this white space. I'm going to take it over and I'm going to be accountable and have ownership on it. That's something you can get sponsored easily because nobody's taking care of it. But later when you present on it, it can open a door later. So look for those opportunities to leverage. And again, that's where you're consistently expanding in leverage all the time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Before I ask, I'm gonna just ask a little question before I take the next one. I wanted to ask you where trust comes in all of this. You being able to help create opportunities for others. What is the trust that is required in that relationship, if I'll put it that way?
No, that's a great question. Trust is super important when you're really pouring yourself out and really being candid and kind of asking for a mirror, right? Someone to kind of reflect on you, what you're showing. And so one thing I want to say though is I remember my first mentors when I came into pharma, you told me trust no one. And I know that seems a little bit of a fear factor, but it was actually really helpful. And I don't think she means not to trust. There are levels and tiers of trusting, right? You have associates, you have advocates, you have sponsors, you have friends even at work or in your networking. And I think understanding how much you can trust somebody and developing trust through developing that relationship is super important. But again, that's not to respect anyone because they'll steal a loaf of bread, right? Forget how that saying goes. But we are in a competitive atmosphere. We are in a competitive atmosphere. We can never lose sight of that. And so, you always want to make sure that as much as you trust your teammates, as much as you trust your managers, that you are representing yourself 100% whole, crossing your T's, dotting your I's. As long as people can trust you, I feel like that's where that relationship stems and you can build from that. And I think that's the most important. Now, I'm not going to say you're not going to have some mentors that your son, botillion or invite them into your close circle, which you will, that will happen. So that's a privilege though, and it's something that you cultivate over time. But I would say again, trust no one, but that doesn't mean not to be open. Doesn't mean not to be engaging. Doesn't mean you don't build relationships. It just means that you have that eye out, for those who might be trying to leverage you or might be trying to take away your credibility sometimes to make them feel whole. That happens, right? But I'm not saying it's going to happen everywhere. So yes, trusting is important, and being able to build, conversations around what trust looks like. I think that's where you'll find.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you balance supporting others in their growth and managing your own career goals?
Balance balance is important. I would just say that I know time is very short, and I try to make myself available at certain times of the week or the day, for anyone that needs to reach out. So there's something on my calendar that's blocked off. There's time for my 5 to 9s on specific days. But really, I meet people where they are. If today, I get constant text messages of, hey, I lost my job today. Is there any open roles available that you know about? Can you connect me with this person? I heard they're hiring. This is something that I aggregate almost automatically. If I see the text message happen, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to share that information. If it's going to take a little bit longer, I will still text immediately and say, hey, this is going to take me some time to do. Do you mind if I get back to you on this day or that day? And I think that's really important to communicate that so that people are, aware that you're working in the background. So, as far as balance, know your time frame, know your schedule, have it, where if you do have a lot of people that you're working with, block off that specific time. But again, come intentional with your own framework so your mentor is not doing all the work. I think that's also super important. So people who ask me to, help them with something, I ask other questions like, what have you done already to prepare for this? What's something that you need from me? What's the timeline that you need this in? And so that can really help us stay balanced in time.
Thank you. Super. Thank you very much. And I think last for you, Alana, at least for now, what would you say are some mistakes that prevent mentorship from evolving into real influence and impact in the sales environment?
Absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here. I believe it's a lack of framework. If you don't create steps to follow, you're just going to kind of be wandering aimlessly. I see it all the time in my networks where these young professionals come in, they think they've paid their membership and jobs are just going to come flowing in at them. And honestly, that wasn't even my reality when I joined. I didn't get a job in pharma until 3 years down the line. But I did get, something that was precious to me. It gave me transferable skills in tech. So again, building out a strategic framework on where you want to go and assessing what you need to get there is super, super important. So mentors who don't acknowledge that are just there to give you some friendly advice. Mentors who are not, coming to your meeting prepared to talk about something, or even mentees prepared to talk about something, then you're just having a nice conversation. And maybe it will uplift you, maybe it'll give you some mental health, resonance for the day. And that could be another mentor as well. But when it comes to building a pathway for your career, building a pathway to, wealth, that is something that needs a framework. And I think that that's a loss right now, because anytime you go to a new, mentoring group, even mentoring groups in my ERGs, they don't have necessarily a framework. We just have consistent meeting points. So again, if you'd like to look and build out, a strategy call with me to understand more of those frameworks that I've built out for myself and other people who come to me for mentorship, you can definitely get in touch.
Thank you very much, Alana. This was a a really insightful session. I can say that I learned a lot. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. No, you're
Um,
very welcome.
so we're going to move on now to Jill. Hi, Jill. We're going to move on to your
Hi.
section now. Hi.
Okay, no problem.
And all right. Um, I'm going to give you let's say 20 minutes or so
Yeah.
for your presentation. I believe you have one. And then
Yes.
we'll go straight into our questions.
Let me do
Yeah.
all my logistics. Are we all good? Can everyone see my screen? Am I sharing?
Yes, for sure.
Yep. Okay, fantastic. So I will go ahead and do a quick intro and get right into my topic, which is taking conversation clients to deals and create some lasting success. There will be naturally some overlap from what fantastic insights and information Alana shared. And she's very excited to hear what you will also share in terms of that authenticity, because authenticity, I think, is in the core of everything we do as women in sales. So, once again, my name is Jo. I've now been in London 6 years. I have been in the space of retail sales, business development, commercial sales for over 15 years. I love saying that because everyone looks at me and they're like, that's a long time. I also had humble beginnings. I started at a MAC makeup counter in Tampa, Florida in 2007 and left Estee Lauder Companies 14 years later as an area sales and operations director. So I literally climbed and took every single position from on the sales floor to sales start in retail and sales floor to all the way to the top. From there, I went to Farfetch and completely challenged myself in e-commerce, and high fashion and luxury goods from beauty, brick and mortar. And that was fantastic. I went from managing 30 to 50 million in retail sales to over 350 million with Farfetch. And that was an amazing experience. I then had my beautiful 2-year-old. And during my time on maternity leave, I decided to take another chapter and step to challenge myself, and I was head of global commercial sales for a vegan skincare brand here in the UK. This start of January, through all that process, I actually finished my executive MBA, and it was finally time for me to step out. And I decided to start what is Let's Grow BFF, which is Let's Grow Black Female Founders. We officially launched in May, and we are a business development agency supporting Black female founders at any stage of their journey. We are working in many different spaces and capacities. I really encourage everyone to check out letsgrowbff.com to learn more about what we do. But today, I am really here to talk about what all this expertise, background, personal growth has gotten me to. And I have always been a lover of sales. I did not know it till I stepped into corporate sales, but I've always been a lover of sales. And it is really, truly, nurturing the art of transactions, is how I truly believe it. So, what we're going to kind of start off with. You don't have to type this in the chat. I do like to always take a temperature check, but it's always good to understand where are you at right now. Are you struggling to be able to convert the conversations? Are you having challenges in building relationships? Do you tend to have the relationship, but you can't ask for the close? That is the art of selling, right? To be able to convert. Do you not understand what a sales funnel is? Do you not have sales enablement plans? Many people are at really different stages. So, what I have is my personal framework that I have seen across every single industry I've worked in every single position I've ever been in, to now as an entrepreneur, essentially selling myself as the product and my agency. Is there's essentially three non negotiables: authentic connection, which all of us, I'm sure, can further deep dive and talk about. And that is essentially thinking of networking as connecting. Strategic positioning, which is really understanding who you are. You are the product, you are the USP. So, yes, you're selling a product, but in the midst of selling the product, you are also selling yourself, because I'm sure they can also get that product or close with other people. And essentially, the momentum. My favorite thing was anytime I had a big sales year. And at my, I would say my height, I had 8 consecutive years of double digit like door growth. I remember every single year I finished year, I would think to myself, I have to do it again. and I have to do it again. And I remember one of my highest days I did at Farfetch, we sold $1 million Richard Mille watch. All I could think is, I don't want to be here next year because I don't want to anniversary this day. But it's essentially, how do you have momentum? How do you keep growing as a sales leader and keep growing with your sales clients? So we're going to start, oop, I went the wrong way. We're going to start essentially with, you're not networking, you're connecting. And what's really important is how you understand the difference between being transactional and being relational, right? And what I think what's really interesting is a lot of people work with me not necessarily by what I can provide as my skill set and capabilities, but it's by who I am. And in order to understand who I am, we need to connect and I need to show up authentically. If I show up as anyone else on this call, it won't land, right? And essentially, something as really intimate as a transaction in the sales will not feel fluid. So, what I like to say about authentic connection is listen for what's not being said. You know, when you're having the conversation, as Alana has shared, when she does her discovery calls and starts connecting with potential clients, she's listening to what they're saying, but also what they're not saying. She's preempting their needs that they haven't identified yet. And that is the intimacy of connection, and that's the intimacy of networking and sales. I think a lot of times people show up with their pitch ready. They researched your company and they're like, here's how I'm going to sell you. But it's not about that. Your sales pitch, your conversation should look and sound and feel different to every single different audience. I thought it was interesting when Alana talked about the benefit, what's in it for me. We talk about the WIFM in sales all the time. Any person or audience you're speaking to, all their brain is psychologically thinking about is, what's in it for me? Why am I here? How am I going to benefit from this? So if you preempt that when you're speaking to them, you're automatically thinking and preempting, here's how I'm going to satisfy your benefits. Here's how I'm going to serve you. But to do that, you have to listen to what's not being said. I think it's also important to create space for real conversations. Not everything has to be done online. Not everything needs to be done on email, and not everything always needs to be done in real life. But really have the power of understanding when is the right environment for what, and be comfortable with the pauses, the silences, be very comfortable as well reading body language. You know, as you're on a call and you're going through your rehearsed pitch or your conversation, if you see their body language change, if you see them start to think, if you see them respond positively to something, you should also take point and think of that. And then the most important is bring your full self. This is what I wish my younger self knew. I did better at sales when I showed up as Joe Wong at sales, not when I try to replicate what I saw, right? And it's because people connect to people. They don't connect to robots, they don't connect to bots. They connect to who you are. Do I use AI and digital tools to help me with sales pitch? Absolutely. But do I train the AI to talk like me? Yes. And not like someone else. So bring your full self, and truly bringing your full self allows you to connect with whoever you're working with in a very different way. um, if I just showed up and was my resume, instead of saying I'm neurodivergent, I'm a daughter of immigrants from Trinidad, I've lived in many different countries, I am also a mother of a very active 2-year-old toddler, immediately we have a different level of intimacy when we're having a sales transaction. All right, so the second part is strategic positioning. I like to say the word strategic positioning, but strategic positioning is also personal branding, right? And all of us work in businesses, all of us work in corporations, and we feel like we're a position. I used to be the sales and operation director of MAC Cosmetics. But what I realized was I'm Joe Wong, and this happens to be the position I carry. And I had to create strategic positioning to say, this is why you work with me and not with someone else. So they need to see why you are special. They need to see what you bring to the table. It's not just what your company does, it's what you do within your company. It's what you do within yourself as an entrepreneur or a sales leader. So I think sometimes a lot of us have to learn how to lead with our story and not just our role and our position. So instead of just having a generic pitch, which I could have, I help businesses grow through strategic partnerships and innovative solutions. I like to say, I've helped founders from underrepresented demographics close deals they didn't think were possible because I understand the unique barriers they face because I've been there. I see the barriers Black female founders face and Black female professionals. So the difference is I'm specific about the problem. I hope you don't hear material screaming in the other room. I'm specific about the solution. I have authority of who I am, and I am very authentic to my lived experience. That's my differentiator, right? You can get many different people to do this, but getting me is the person you need. And in order for me to do this, I have to build what's called your personal brand, which is your strategic positioning. All of us, I'm sure on this call, know how to sell something, but not all of us know how to sell ourselves. And that's something I find myself helping a lot of sales leaders and business leaders to say, you're great at selling the product you have, but you're not great at positioning yourself the same way you position this product. So it's taking a step back and looking at that as well. The last pillar is sustainable momentum. So the closing is just the beginning. You want to think of a lifetime value of this transaction. And what made me always different with the retailers I used to work with in Farfetch, the retailers I used to work with in the Caribbean, the deals I used to close, the very difficult ones was when I got the transaction is when I started to really do the work, not finish. Right. And I think a lot of times people are so stressed about getting the close, getting the sale. They're like, all right, so that's that. Let me move on to my next attempt. Let me move on to my next sales funnel. But that's essentially when you really start to build a relationship. So here's a little bit of a timeline you can use as guidance so that you have this continued funnel and relationship. So over communicate really early. Establish regular touch points, not just to get the invoice, not just to get the close of the sale, but really continue this conversation and checking in. 60 days, see how they're doing with it. If it is, work like Alana's doing, if it is a product you've sold to them, follow up, see if they're happy with it, ask if they have questions, but continue that ongoing relationship. Create a beautiful environment for feedback. Maybe it's in how the transaction of the sale closed, or if there's challenges they're having with you. And try to create small wins and look at the low hanging fruit of, okay, I sold this to you. Look at how this has already changed your business. Look how this has already impacted you. The founders that come onto my programs in our business development agency, I don't wait till 60, 90 days to say, look how this is working for you. I want to show them quick wins so that they continue to reinvest with me. And then always create a beautiful 90-day check in where you can do a strategic review, identify if there were opportunities, make adjustments. But the biggest part of this is deepening the partnership. And I love to say it's not a sales transaction, it's a partnership because both of us are leaving the table with something from a sense of full scope and negotiation. So I do want to talk about, what are common mistakes, like have a real conversation. Disappearing after the close. I can't tell you how many people put all the work in. In Trinidad, we say mama guy, like they sweeten you up. And then all of a sudden they get the close of the sale and they're like, all right, cool. I'm never going to speak to this person again. Over promising. There's many times people say, is this going to change my business? Is this going to work? Am I going to see impact? Just because you want the sale doesn't mean you overpromise. You can say, that is the impact we hope to see. Those are the ambitions, but maybe call out, do understand that these could also be some risk, but I will do everything in my power to support you on. Treat every client the same. Every client's not the same. Some need you to check in and hold their hand. Some need you just to send a high five and make sure they're encouraged and doing well. So create really personalized and customized relationships with your clients and ignoring feedback. Feedback is all valid. Even if you might say it's wrong or they don't have it right, their experience is real. Their perception is real. So make sure you correct it so that in the future you don't run into the same issues when it comes to feedback. So I think the biggest thing is I've been on both sides. I've been the person that has been given sales and transactions, and I've been the person trying to close the sale. And when you've been in both seats, you know what feels icky, you know what feels awkward, but you also know when it's done well. So really take the opportunity when someone is selling something to you to say, what did I not like about this? Or what did I really enjoy about this? And see how you can further adapt that as well. So I think Mondays are my favorite days. I like to actually have the least amount of meetings on Mondays. I also like to make sure capacity wise, mindset, because I truly believe if you have the right Monday, you have the right week. Right. So I am a big fan of the weekly cadence. So Monday, review the pipeline, see what's really getting to the right place of connection and positioning, and see what's getting stuck. Two, schedule some post-deal check-ins. Like look at the forward week, see what you still owe people, see what you want to do as updates. I think it's also a nice time to kind of remind yourself of your unique positioning. I like to post content about myself on Mondays just to remind everybody, like, here's what I'm working on. Here are some successes I've had for the week. And then commit to one partner you want to relationship build for the week. If it is you want to just have a coffee offline, or who's a partner you haven't heard from for 6 months after a couple deals? Maybe just having a coffee check-in or saying, I just love to catch up with you and see how everything's been going. So think of Monday as your strategic day. And those are my overall tips. I will share my deck. So if anybody from this call wants to see it, you can find me on LinkedIn. My personal branding, I guess you would say, or labels, who is Joe Wong. But yeah, I'm CEO founder of Let's Grow BFF. You can check out what we're doing as well on our socials for Let's Grow BFF. And I hope I want to make sure I got everything in. So I kind of went a little fast. But like Alana, if anybody has any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out. I love seeing Black women in sales. A lot of us on this call were all by ourselves in many of those boardrooms. So I do have a very big passion to see more Black women get into sales and succeed and have success in sales.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
And I like your dimple, by the way. So unrelated, but I like your dimple. Um,
Thank you.
okay. So we'll just go straight into our questions. That was
Yes.
short and sweet. So first of all, what would you say are the elements that can turn a casual conversation into a business relationship?
I love casual conversations to turn into business I think that's the best way to do it. When I launched Let's Grow BFF, I didn't create cold calls. If you were a Black woman and you had founder in your description, I messaged you. And I did not say, hey, I'm starting a development agency. Do you want to sign up? I said, hey, I see you've had an incredible journey of entrepreneurship. I'd love to have a coffee or a virtual call to hear about your journey. And that's how I've gotten every single client I've had. It was just that I'd love to learn about your journey. And in the conversation of their journey, I just stripped a couple things like, have you thought about this? And you know what would be great for your business? And a lot of them were like, oh, wow. And then I said, well, let me share a little bit of what I'm working on. And this was my sales pitch, but they didn't know it was my sales pitch. And the call always ended with, would you be interested in helping me? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we should have a discovery call. And then I set up the pitch call, right? But I think casual conversations are the best because there's some founders within the casual conversation. I realized, you know what? I'm not the best fit to pitch to them. So I would have had a pitch which would have ended kind of awkward because he wouldn't have been the right fit. And similar to what Alana shared, I knew somebody else that was perfect for them. So I think all transactions should start with a casual conversation where they get to know you, you get to know them, because you need to make sure it's a right fit for both parties. Not every transaction is going to be the right transaction, or client's going to be the right one for you.
Interesting. Interesting. So that said, at what point would you know as a sales professional that, this conversation is ready to transition into, what could be a conversation? Yeah.
Um, I think it's the cues of desire, where they're inquisitive about what you do. How does this, they'll ask you these really interesting questions. So how does this work? And what does this look like? Depending on the culture, they might ask pricing. I've learned very culturally quickly in England, they don't talk money ever. The beginning. It's very faux pas, like, oh no, you don't talk money. But in the US, you might say, like, so how much is this? Or about how much does it cost? That's desire. Those are cues of desire. And that's when you could say, they're interested. And that's where you can say, you know what, I'd be happy to send you information on what these programs look like, and feel free to schedule an intake discovery call so we could explore further.
Thank you. You talked about sustainable momentum, and in your deck you said closing the deal is just the beginning, something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's where this next question is going. What habits would you say would help maintain client trust even after your deal is closed, so that the relationship continues to grow, to blossom?
I think it's having authentic, genuine touch points after, where, because automatically when you reach out, they're going to think, oh my gosh, she's trying to sell me something else. And then if you're just like, hey, I just want to see how things are going, or hey, you know what, I've thought about you, and there's another business that could benefit from you. I love to say I love being a conduit. There was a brand I worked with called Black Girl Knit Club, and I'm working with another brand called Dibia, which is a skincare brand. I've connected them. So I reached out to both, and it had nothing to do with selling them something, but I gave them something. So I think in any way you could actually pour back into the business, gives them a feeling of, wow, they actually want to see me
Me,
succeed. This feels
yeah.
genuine and authentic.
Hmm. Thank you. That's very useful, actually. Very. So how the next question for you, how can you keep the momentum going with a client, when the initial excitement starts to fade, when the honeymoon feelings go away? Yeah.
I think as somebody with product, you must diversify your product. So maybe you started off with one product and they've exhausted needing that. So then you introduce something different. Like, I see that you don't use this anymore, but this could be an opportunity. I think it's really just understanding what their future needs are and keeping the excitement. There's a reason why brands have newness, right? There's a reason why a lot of assortments don't stay the same 18 months straight. It's because you need to create more theater, we used to say at Mac. Like, you need to create more excitement. So there's newness. There's something that they haven't discovered with you.
Okay. Thank you. For now, the last question, but I will encourage anyone who's listening and has a question to type it in the chat box, and then we'll get to it later. So,
Mhm.
this last question for now for you, Joe.
Mhm.
What mistakes would you say are the things that stop great conversations from becoming long-term profitable relationships, and how can we avoid them?
I think when I thought with my limited beliefs versus allowed myself to be a little delusional, I hate to say, I think I left a lot of money on the table. Um, I think sometimes you walk in and you have your own imposter syndrome, your own limited beliefs, and you're like, I can't ask for 1 million from this person, or I can't ask for them to close this. And then you realize I could have, but it was my own limited beliefs that stopped it, not the actual. Like, I tell people all the time, push, and not push like aggressively, but keep going till they tell you stop. When I used to work with my Mac artist and they would be doing a sales demo and they would stop showing product. And I was like, but they didn't tell you to stop. You stopped because you didn't think they could spend more. So don't allow your limited mindset and beliefs stop the momentum. Stop when they're ready to stop. Don't stop reaching out. Don't stop starting conversations until, you stop getting responses. Sometimes I'll reach back out to somebody who's went quiet for 6 months, and I'll just do a check-in like, hey, was thinking about you and your business. Hope everything's well. And they came back, I'm so sorry. It's been absolutely crazy. We've been thinking about you. I'd love to talk to you next week. What if I just stopped? So I think we have to get a little bit comfortable with rejection and not have this apprehension that, like, oh, they're going to hurt my feelings because they don't want it. It's fine. People have a will and choice. So I think just not my mistake was using my limited belief stopping me from moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. I absolutely
Thank
enjoyed
you.
this session and I learned a lot, I could say, and I hope
Great.
anyone else who's listening has taken notes and also learned quite a bit. You can connect with Joe on LinkedIn, Joe Wong on LinkedIn, and check out Grow Grow BFF. I'm so sorry.
It's
Yes,
okay. It's okay.
I got
I'm
that.
gonna apologize.
Yeah,
I might have to turn my camera off because I'm gonna lose my child care in a little bit, but I'm still here. I'm still
no
here, but I
problem.
might be multitasking a little bit. But
No
thank you so
problem.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Totally
Thank
understand,
you.
Joe.
All right. And we will have the final session of the evening right about now with Teju Ajani. Hi, Teju. Thank you for listening in
Hello.
on all of the sessions.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. It's been so wonderful just, listening to different perspectives, different voices, and just soaking in all the reminders, as well as, learning the new tidbits. So
Thank,
that's been really awesome for me. Thank you.
thank you too. Thank you. So we'll just start off with your own presentation and we'll just use about 15 minutes for that.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
I will try to get through it as quickly as possible.
thank
But
you.
before I share my screen, I think let me preface this a little bit. I didn't start out in sales.
Mm,
I think I accidentally landed in sales. My background's engineering. I'm a software engineer by and I started my first role as a support engineer. But way back when I started, that job actually was one of the first, I think it set the tone for my career because what I learned, my experience was first of all, I never worked a full day inside the office. And I found out that I enjoyed that. So it taught me, I started learning the things I liked. And then the second was I was usually a double minority. So I was the only woman in the room and I was the only Black person in the room. And with a bunch of engineers. Um, and then my second role was where I started to transition into sales. And that was, I was on the technical team. Before the sales team, I was on the technical team. And I think that taught me so many lessons that I still use today, and so many life lessons that I think have culminated in what I call an amazing career that I've had a lot of fun with, and I've enjoyed myself. The reason I'm passionate about sharing is because I see, just like Joe has said, I see opportunity and potential for people to live a fuller life, right? For people to live a more authentic life. I think the greatest compliment somebody paid me once was, this is someone I've known for over 10 years. And he said, I've known you for over 10 years and you're the same person in and out. And I said, thank you. I will take that as a compliment. And I'll segue with that into the presentation because I think I'm focusing on authenticity, sorry. And there's something about that. Again, just like Joe said, when she shows up as herself, or when she showed up as herself, was when she was able to make progress. And this is not necessarily the topic of the conversation, but there's a benefit when we're able to show up as ourselves, not just to our clients, but to us. And going back to what Alana has said about your well-being and your wholeness and your being, there's a freedom that comes from being authentic. And so I'll just go ahead with the presentation and we'll close off from there. So here we go. Can you see my screen?
yes, please. Yes. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, so thank you for inviting me today. I would like to preface and say, actually, Wamaka got me because she sold to me, right? She got me to speak on this call because she sold to me, because she provided something. Again, going back to the conversations that have happened already this evening, she sold something to me, and that was I woke up to this, lovely article that was written about me, and I almost asked myself, I was like, who's she talking about me? And my friends were curious, and they were excited too, because they saw it and they said, this person, it's almost like this person knows you. And I said, I never met her before. But just having received such a nice gift, when she reached out and said, hey, would you mind speaking, you know it was a no-brainer for me. It was just one of those things. But again, it didn't feel like I was being pitched to or targeted for something. It was it was done in a very authentic way. And now we're talking about, building authentic relationships in the age of AI. I think for me, my position is that digital has not replaced relationships. It's just changed where they happen, right? So for all the technology we have now, AI, automation, different multi-channel, omni-channel engagement, all that stuff, the one thing, and this is going to sound familiar, the one thing that consistently and constantly determines who wins or loses is trust. And you just heard Joe say that, you just heard Alana talk about that. The one thing that consistently determines who wins or loses again is trust. I spent a lot of years working, with different sales teams across different regions and cultures. And the one thing that's consistent is in my observation is that genuine salespeople, great salespeople, genuinely care about the people they serve. So again, remember, it's not like a one and done. It's not like, oh, I've gotten the business and I'm done. It's no, they know where they live. They know where their kids go to school. They know when there's a sports event. They know where something is going on. And so that's what I want to walk through today is how do we keep that human connection strong, even when most of our interactions are happening through screens, through messages, and through digital channels, right? So clients are still here. They've just simply changed how they want to interact with us. They're not allergic to platforms. They need platforms to be useful, just like we need platforms to be useful. Again, we're learning, we're evolving, so are our clients. And an increasing number of clients are now, or buyers, I would call them, are now digital first, right? So they are also doing exactly what we're doing. They prefer, like, there's so much going on with everybody. Joe saying, hey, I might need to leave because something else is going on in the background. Somebody else might call, I've had an interruption here. So there's a lot going on for everybody. And the idea that the conversations will start and end with you has evolved, right? And it's basically now remote conversations like, oh, don't bother me. Can you just send that to me by email? Or can you just send me a text? Or can you just, do something else? Don't necessarily pick up the phone or have actually try to host a meeting with me. But because this could also be isolating, it also further highlights the need for a strong relationship, right? When, I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed with information sometimes. And I'm sure buyers do as well. In my experience, that's what's been the case. So when they're overwhelmed, the person who can bring clarity becomes the person who is invaluable to them, right? If you can bring clarity to a conversation or to a problem that a buyer or client is facing, then you become invaluable to them. You have to remember again that a relationship will always be greater than being transactional. Trust and empathy will always be the drivers for loyalty, right? Authenticity will always, always, always differentiate you in crowded markets, in spaces where there's a lot of noise, right? And so instead of just pushing and selling, you become their ally. You become a trusted advisor. And people buy from people they believe in. They don't buy your products. They buy a trust and belief in you, based on trust and belief in you. I'm just going to go through this real quick, which is about 60% of the buying decision is made today before a client even, either contacts you or by the time you get to the client. And I'm going to put out some numbers, but I've provided a reference sheet. So anybody that needs the reference sheet after this, I'm not going to go into all the reference points, but the reference sheet is there. So I've already sent that to Wamaka, and that will be shared after the presentation. 80% of buyers trust their peers more than they trust anybody else. And it's a natural human instinct. It's not it's nothing new. It's a natural human instinct. We all do the same thing. Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust your friend or are you going to trust a stranger? It's a no-brainer. And now we've evolved from the age of transactional selling, right? To it's no longer just about the dinners or about the golf games and all that. Still, they still help sometimes. But again, the where has changed and the how has changed. And they've now also developed additional expectations because, LinkedIn says, for example, that they expect salespeople to understand their needs before they even have the conversation. Otherwise, why are you talking to me? So again, how are you going to know all this? By building trust. Give me a second. Is this happening? Okay, there we go. So trust, trust, trust. How do we build trust in the digital era? I put up my hands to say, don't get scared. It's an equation, yes. Again, maybe my engineering background is showing through, but it's a very, very simple equation. So don't get scared. But essentially, it's basically saying you need to combine your credibility, you need to combine reliability, and you need to combine intimacy with orientation. And when I say orientation, or when I'm talking about self-orientation, I'm specifically saying, what's your orientation? Credibility, we understand. You have to know your stuff. Reliability, we understand. You have to be able to make sure that you consistently meet the obligations and the challenges that you've said you were going to solve. Intimacy, you know them, you know the issues, you know you're trying to address the problems. But the one thing that could sabotage you is self-orientation. What exactly is your orientation? Is it them or is it you? Right? Again, going back to, are you just trying to close the deal and fill the quota, or are you trying to solve a real issue? Right? Again, essentially, you're answering over and over again, what's in it for me for your client? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And where that what includes their success. How are you going to make them successful? Let me tell you this saying that when I was reading this book, it struck me and it stayed with me. You don't just close a deal, you open a relationship, right? You're not just trying to sell, you're trying to make the customer better. And when I say make the customer better, again, if you're trying to make a person successful, they're not going to argue with you, they're not going to fight you, they're going to collaborate with you. If your product solves a problem as part of the solution that you're bringing to them, then it's a no-brainer for them. How are they going to get to that place of that position of understanding and making sure that your product is solving a part of their problem? It's trust. It's based on relationships you have built. I have people today that would consider whatever solution, I'm not even in the same industry anymore, right? But they would consider whatever solution I presented them today because of relationships we have had for over 10 years. It will take time to build trust, but it pays off, right? As a trusted advisor, trusted seller, you can win premium deals. You can accelerate decision cycles, right? It will take time to build, but again, that ability, that authentic relationship that you're building is only amplified today by digital tools. For example, my position on this is, again, going back to Alana's point, you need to have a structure. You need to have structure around what you're trying to present and what you're trying to propose to people. Methodology helps me. And so I put this together, and there's an additional framework that I use as well. But this methodology is one that helps to build the trust that we've been talking about. So first of all, it's purposeful personalization, right? It's about using all the data and the tools that you have at your disposal to show that you really care. So, for example, you're not just sending me another email. You're not just blasting another email out to me. You're saying, oh, maybe you check the company reports and you saw that something was happening and you remember a conversation we had. So you're sending me a highlight from my own company report saying, hey, I checked this out and I think actually this might be a position where I can help you with, or something I can help you with, or I know someone who can help you with it. Again, you're building that relationship. The second also is, excuse me, creating value first digital presence. So it's about helping people before you ask for anything. I just gave the example of how Wamaka got me, right? There was a beautiful article that I didn't even know was coming. And here I am talking on this, this call today. So helping people before you ask for anything, building trust when you're not even in the room, right? Building that relationship, creating that relationship, and then building on it. And then the third is having human moments in digital interactions, right? Know when to stop hiding behind your keyboard. I cannot emphasize this enough. Be human. I cannot emphasize this enough. In the age of AI, we sometimes seem to be losing our humanity because it's so easy to just click a button and send something out. But when you do, you're basically saying, I don't care. You're just like everybody else. And I don't really value what I'm sending to you because I'm just throwing the same thing out to everybody else. And it really doesn't take much. Yes, you can still do the generic email draft, but for example, include a personalized sentence in that so that they know that there's at least been a touch point from you in that email. Do your research, and make sure that you're maintaining that relationship with me to demonstrate value, not just to sell and close your quota. And then choose the right time for the right tool. So schedule a call sometimes, meet in person sometimes, but don't just focus on your own convenience, because again, I think we get over tooled, and it's so easy to just rely on tools and forget the need for the interaction there. The relationship no longer starts with the meeting. The relationship stops before the meeting, right? So it starts with the moments leading up to the meeting. When someone reads your LinkedIn post, when somebody receives a nice article, when somebody watches a presentation that you've done or something, by the time you get into the room, there's already an impression. There's already a conversation. There's already, whether the room is virtual or physical, right? There's already an impression that's been formed. And there are subconscious cues as to whether this person is trustworthy or not. And do they understand my world? Do they care about me? And that's all going to build trust. So, like I said, the methodology and the framework. It seems like we all have, frameworks that we we hinge our work on, and again, they just make sense. They just make sense. But this is one framework I found useful. It's not set in stone, but it's one built on authenticity. So again, just quick run through: align on outcomes, understand the desired future state for your client. What is it? What's the problem today? And where are you trying to go? Where are they trying to go? Where are you trying to go with them? What's the future that you can both envision? Understand their world, know the industry point of view, know their point of view, know their pain points and how it affects them. It shows and demonstrates care. Tell the truth. Please do not BS anybody. Tell the truth. Buyers appreciate candor more than like promises. Joe called it don't overpromise. I call it tell the truth. So same thing, right? But don't overpromise, but be candid. Yes, this product can help with your solution, but it's not going to give you 100%. It's going to give you 30% or 40% or whatever. But here's the value to you. Humanize digital. That's the H part. A 45-second voice note can sound or be more relevant sometimes than an email. Be a resource. Don't be a pitch. Don't be that person that's constantly pitching. Be a resource to them. And this goes back to Alana's conversation as well about, even in terms of mentorship versus of being a multiplier, is be a resource whenever you meet someone. And this, again, it's such a part of human nature that I find it challenging sometimes that we've taken that structure away and we've automated it in a way, because what we do is we connect. So why do we really need to be thinking now about humanizing digital? It's all in the name of, we've done it in the name of convenience, right? But again, we're reminding ourselves that we need to go back to the table. Engage across multiple channels, small but meaningful touches, sending a relevant email, like I said, or a voice note or something. They all matter. And then time matters. You need to nurture the relationship over time. Not every opportunity moves fast. Not every opportunity will pan out. And that's okay, right? You win some, you lose some. But there's an old country song that says, you've got to know when to hold, know when to fold. And that song, I don't remember who, one of my uncles or somebody shared that with me as a kid, and it's a country song. And it's something that reverberates in my head often when I'm talking to people. Okay. And then teach, the T part: teach, don't pitch. When you teach someone something they didn't know, then again, you're bringing and adding value versus just, oh, I'm coming to you because I need this. Oops, I jumped one too fast. So teach, don't pitch. And then integrate without losing humanity. Use the tools, but let your voice lead. Like Joe said, she uses AI, but she makes sure that she uses them in her own voice. So make sure that your tool represents you. AI is just a tool. Authenticity is you, right? And then C, commit to follow through. If you make a promise, keep it. If you can't keep it, communicate it early. If something is going on, then let them know. Use consistency to build credibility. Consistency can be really, really key, and it helps create an impression that can be unforgettable. Okay. So leveraging tools to build relationships, be a resource, not a pitch. What was this one? Be a resource, not a pitch, right? In the digital ecosystem, your content is your currency. So therefore, you now also have put on the hat of being a content creator. Curate information, share news and tidbits and information that affects your clients with them. Engage, comment on their wins and ask them questions. Post content, create post contents that solves real problems for your clients. Navigating the digital landscape. I won't say much on this except to reiterate. Digital tools are simply amplifiers. They are that's all they are. If you're helpful, they amplify that. If you're not helpful, they amplify that. So just keep that in mind. Key takeaways. At the end of the day, digital buying is here to stay. Digital relationships are here to stay. Trust is the differentiator. Authenticity scales when you make it a system. Make it a system. It's not authentic selling is not a soft skill. It's strategic, especially in a digital world. Make sure that your mindset is right. Trust is always greater than being transactional. Relationships will always trump transaction. Listen to your clients, personalize information, and make sure that you are driving, you're providing value-driven touch points to them. My position is that, your next big deal won't fail to a competitor because of the fact that they had something better than you, or because they had a product that was better than yours. I think your next deal might fail because your client found somebody that they trust more. So with that in mind, I would say pick a digital channel this week, try something, and post one piece of high value content that solves a real customer problem, not a pitch. Okay. And with that, I will leave you with this. In a world of algorithms, we sell best when we stay human. So again, if anybody has questions, I look forward to hearing them. Feel free to connect with me. I'm also working on stuff just like Joe and Alana. So more to come in 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Teju. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Okay. And I really like how a lot of the conversation just seems very synced, from the frameworks to the authenticity to the discussion about trust. Thank you very much for contributing so meaningfully to this conversation. We'll just take a few questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, you've already talked about how a lot in today's world is becoming automated or has become automated. And so the first question I want to ask you is how can a sales professional maintain genuine human connection when a lot of these customer journeys are becoming automated?
I would go back to one of the things I said in the presentation, which is know when to use what, right? Know when to use the right tool. And really, I wouldn't make it more complicated than that. It really is just figuring out what's appropriate and when do I need to pick up the phone or when do I need to send an article. And when you care about the person or when you care beyond your sale, and when I say care, it's not like you're adopting a new family member, but when you care beyond your sale, it shows, right? And it becomes a no-brainer to kind of figure out. Nobody's teaching you how to talk to your child in a soft voice or in a stern voice. It's again as appropriate. Nobody's teaching you how to relate to your family. It's do I pick up the phone and call them? Are we overdue for a meeting? Are we, just pick the right tool for the right time.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think a great part of authenticity is emotional intelligence. And so when selling today, how does emotional intelligence come in? What role does it play in relationship selling as opposed to transactional selling? Especially seen as digital tools handle a lot of interactions.
Digital tools handle a lot of interactions, but they are not emotional. It's as simple as that. Again, they are tools, and what you're doing is trying to build a relationship. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. When you're able to read your person, when you're able to read the room, when you're able to read and understand how you connect the dots or how you help them connect the dots between you, your position, and the solution they're looking for. That's the emotional intelligence that needs to be built.
Thank you. So I know Joe talked about this when she said that she does use AI, but she doesn't just let AI do whatever. She will train the AI to speak like her. So and that was really interesting. How would you say teams could use AI to enhance trust with clients rather than unintentionally damaging trust?
Mm. I mean, again, they're tools. It's one of the things I shared with Wamaka, and maybe I should put that back up, but they're tools for every stage, actually. Let me just share this real quick.
Okay.
Let me go back here and share this real quick, because I think there are tools for every stage that make it easy or easier. Are we here? Yes. So here's just a quick matrix I had put together. It's by no means exhaustive. There's tools for every stage. And this is now where the work comes for every person. Because in the age of AI, you've all now become, or I would say, yeah, I say you've all, speaking from a position of an engineer, now become engineers where you never stop learning. You're constantly looking out for how do you improve your trade? How do you improve stuff? And since the day I left school, I used to get frustrated because I was like, I thought I was done with school. I'm still learning. I'm still picking up books. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. And now, because of the acceleration that's come with AI, it's almost like everybody's now caught up in that wave. And there's so many tools and there's so many things that it's very easy to get bogged down. But if you can pick your use case, what is it that I need? And then you find a tool that works for you, you can almost ignore all the noise and ignore everything else. So, that's where tools come in, and then pick the right tool for the right use case is what I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to say something that I have heard.
Sure.
You know, this conversation about transactional selling versus relationship building in sales is a bit of a tightrope for a lot of people,
Yeah.
based on environment, culture, and all sorts of
Yes.
different things. Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's a high likelihood that more people will hear that you can't exactly you can't exactly scale if you're going the route of building relationships rather than transactional selling. But now this is telling us that it is possible. And so this question is, what strategies can help salespeople scale personalized connections, build relationships without losing authenticity, and if I might add, without losing business as well?
To that, I would say you need to scale your clients, and it's the hard truth of the world we live in and just how things work. 20% of your clients are going to give you 80% value. It's just the truth. So why don't you focus on those 20% to make sure that you're building the authentic relationship? The rest, it's not like I'm saying do not build an authentic relationship with everybody else, but create a funnel, use a funnel. And in your funnel, then you can move people up or down as the case might, as might be needed. And where you find that there might be tension, again, when it comes to culture, I smile because I haven't lived in the US since 2012. And so, I've worked in different countries, and different cultures, and I understand the tension that can exist, because in some cases when you're trying to be authentic, some people might take it as well, you're being a little too forward, or you're being a little too familiar, or you're being a little too something, So again, I understand that there can be tension there. When you drive with value, when you focus on delivering value, and when you're able to choose the right timing, that's almost like an unbeatable conversation, because the person, and again, knowing that sometimes not everything is always going to be 100% okay. Sometimes we win some, we lose some, but the goal is to win more than we lose, right? And when you combine the right tool, you combine the right timing, you combine that with value and authenticity, it's a winning combination, regardless of your culture.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
The final question for you, Teju, is, can you tell us what human skills do you think will matter most for building long-term client loyalty?
This might seem unrelated, but I'm going to say there's one, and that's critical thinking. Because
Awesome.
critical thinking. And I say that because that underlies everything that we've talked about. And it underlies the relationship that you're trying to build. If I'm unable to separate myself from my scenario and to take a bird's eye view of my client, their needs, their desires, their wants, their anticipations, whatever the case might be. If I'm unable to do that, then there's a challenge already. There's no way I'm going to win. If I'm not able to think through what my solution can provide to them, and where there might be challenges for them, even with the solution I'm presenting, then there's a problem. If I'm unable to connect the dots to where they can see the picture I'm trying to paint, there's a problem. So that's why I said the underlying skill is critical thinking. And again, I choose it because I find that in conversations, sometimes it feels like we're beginning to lose that. And everybody's relying on ChatGPT to think for them. And that's a problem. So yeah, that's why I picked that skill.
That's a heavy one. But thank you. Thank you very
Shy
much.
away from the
Thank you very much, Teju. This was such a wonderful conversation. And I really love the energy. I really love the insights. I think personally, not just the positivity, but the hope and the possibilities I can see in being able to build better relationships, really, in sales. Thank you, ladies, and thank you to everyone who joined this call today. I don't see any questions in the chat, but we had a comment from Alu, who thanks all three ladies, and she has learned a lot. She had to run off. But thank you again. Everyone on the call, we had Alana, we had Joe, and we had Teju, and you can connect with them on LinkedIn. Just if you go to the Queen of Sales page, you will find them from the Queen of Sales page. And you should, if you're not part of the Queen of Sales community, this is some of what we do. Really powerful, impactful stuff, helping women in sales all over the world. So find us on LinkedIn, join the community, and thank you again. We will see you next time. Have a pleasant day, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.